It goes without saying that Revelation is a bit of a confusing book to read. In it, we see strange multi-headed beasts and locusts that resemble horses, yet have human faces and women's hair, torturing people on the earth. And of course, who could forget the famous Mark of the Beast? If it seems confusing to us, we can take comfort that some of the early Christians living in the centuries after it was written also had difficulty understanding it. A Christian named Eusebius, who lived in the 4th century, wrote, "I suppose that the book of Revelation is beyond my comprehension, and that there is a certain concealed and more wonderful meaning in every part." But that doesn't mean that the book is impossible to understand, and that we should just ignore it completely. It does mean, however, that when we read and try to understand the book, we should hold a high degree of humility in our interpretation of it. For most of the last 2,000 years, Christians have proposed different approaches to interpreting the prophetic images in Revelation. In this video, we're going to look at the 4 main Christian views of Revelation, each of which has been the popular view at different times in church history. First, let's look at the most popular view today, at least in many American Protestant Christian circles, as well as some other denominations around the world. This view is known as the Futurist view, and it interprets Revelation's prophetic imagery as mainly describing the end of days and the second coming of Jesus. People who try to take biblical language as literally as possible are often drawn to the Futurist view, as if taken literally, the extreme judgments described in Revelation do not fit any historical event. For instance, because we have not seen events that are clear fulfillments of the 7 seals of Revelation 6, such as the 4 horsemen and the sky rolling up like a scroll, Futurists interpret the opening of the seals as the rapture of Christians and the beginnings of the Great Tribulation that they believe will happen leading up to Christ's second coming. Meanwhile, other Futurists see the rapture a bit later in the book, happening in chapter 11. As far as we can tell, the Futurist view was first made popular by a 16th century Jesuit priest named Francisco Ribera. This view has many different forms, with some of today's popular interpretations stemming from John Nelson Darby in the 1800s, called dispensationalism. The next view I want to mention is still popular among many Christians around the world. This one is called the Preterist view. Unlike the Futurist view, Preterists see past events as fitting the prophetic images of Revelation. Most Preterists see the events surrounding Jerusalem's fall to Rome in the year AD 70 as fitting much of Revelation's imagery. In Revelation, they point to the striking similarity it shares with the Old Testament language that predicted Jerusalem's fall to Babylon in 586 BC. From that, they conclude that Revelation is prophesying about a similar event. For instance, looking again at the 7 seals of Revelation 6, Preterists point out that they follow a very similar pattern to the opening prophecy of Ezekiel, which is a prediction of Jerusalem's fall to Babylon. Both visions start with a very similar picture of the throne room of God, followed by the image of a scroll. Preterists say that both scrolls prophesy of Jerusalem's fall, Ezekiel's to the fall to Babylon in 586 BC, and John's of the fall to Rome in AD 70. Like the Futurist view, this view was also made popular by a 16th century Jesuit, but this man was a theologian named Luis del Alcazar. Some Preterists also see prophecies extending to the fall of Rome in the year AD 476, and almost all Preterists see some references to the second coming and the age to come at the end of the book. The third view may not be as popular today, however, at one time it was the dominant view among Christians. It was held by Christian reformers like Martin Luther and is still widely held amongst Seventh-day Adventists. This one is called the Historicist view. Unlike the Futurist and Preterist views that see Revelation prophesying of events surrounding a specific point in history, like the second coming of Christ or the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, historicists understand Revelation to be prophesying about events that cover the entire church age, the time between Christ's first and second comings. In the book, they see major events that impact the church, such as the fall of the Roman Empire, the rise of Islam, and various persecutions against Christians as being foretold. For instance, in the Seven Seals, historicists see events of the Roman Empire, including persecution of Christians and even the conversion of Constantine, as being prophesied. From there, historicists say that Revelation continues to predict major events that have impacted and will impact the church until Christ's kingdom is victorious in chapter 19. This view has roots in the 12th century and was further developed by Martin Luther in the 16th century. The last view we will look at is often called the Idealist view. Like the historicist view, it also sees Revelation as covering the whole scope of church history between Christ's first and second comings. However, unlike the historicist view, the Idealist interpretation does not seek to find specific historical or future fulfillments for most of Revelation's prophecies. Instead, this view understands Revelation as a spiritual drama that teaches Christians spiritual principles and realities that exist throughout the church age. It shows the tension of this age where the kingdom of God has come, yet we still wait for its full manifestation and the final judgment of evil at Christ's second coming. For instance, looking again at the Seven Seals, Idealists understand them to be teaching Christians that during the church age, wars, famine, and martyrdom should be expected. However, despite this, Christians can take comfort that Jesus is still sovereign, and his kingdom will grow to encompass people from every tribe, nation, and language. As Idealists see Revelation as a book of cycles, after the seventh seal, the next cycle begins with the seven trumpets. This cycle teaches different truths about the church age, but like the seven seals, it culminates with a picture of Christ's second coming. These cycles continue through Revelation, always pointing its readers to the ultimate victory of Christ. The Idealist view began its rise to popularity in the Renaissance period, and versions of it are still popular today among many scholars. When we study Revelation, it is a good idea to remain open to the fact that the view we currently hold may not actually be the correct interpretation of this book. I highly recommend a commentary that clearly lays out each of these four views in parallel, called Revelation: Four Views, by an author named GREGG. It is a great resource where you can easily see how each view interprets the text. You can then choose for yourself which approach makes the most sense. Though these views cannot each be a correct interpretation of Revelation, the good news is that you can be a Jesus-loving, Bible-believing Christian and hold to any one of these views.